Hello everyone and welcome to Cappuccino with HR. My name is Rudi Bauer and after 40 years in business I'm 100% sure that the success of companies is directly related to the passion of the people working for these companies. With the Cappuccino of HR we created a format where we really invite people, it's HR leaders, it's recruiters, it's talent acquisition guys, and we're talking about all the different kind of topics, and the range is going from AI of course to new work, to leadership, and all the challenges along the way. Yeah, hello and welcome to another episode of Cappuccino with HR. And today I'm really delighted and I'm really thankful that she took her time to have Meghan Hennessy with us. So, hi, Meghan.
Hi, Rudy. So happy to be here.
And we are talking about a really cool topic. I mean, I think it's becoming more and more important in times like this. We are talking about leadership, and uh, we have chosen a name which I really love very well as well. It's Culture Starts With You, Rethinking Leadership in 2025. So we are going to talk about that. But before we start, Megan, may I ask you to introduce you briefly yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, again, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Meghan Hennessy. I'm a global people director based here in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I've been here about almost 10 years. So it's a bit like home. I unfortunately don't know Dutch yet. Shame on me. But I started my career in Silicon Valley in the States and have had the pleasure and amazing opportunity of building and leading global organizations, distributed teams all over the world for some of the biggest names in tech, Apple, Uber, Facebook, and focus quite a lot on scale development, people development, leadership development, and how that kind of all comes together in creating high performing teams, especially in kind of the age that we're in and scaling. I've had the privilege of seeing massive, massive scale. So some of the early starters at Uber, where I don't even know that we've seen that kind of scale still again. So with that comes a lot of challenges, and it's always been fun to tackle. Uh, on a more personal side, I love traveling. I think who doesn't these days? It's what I spend doing my free time all the time. I'm really big on foodie. I could just eat all the time. And I do a lot of artwork and art things, as I think it's a nice calming activity, a lot of creativity. So that's me in a nutshell.
Really cool. There's only one question which I have to ask you because we ask that every guest because it's called Cappuccino with HR.
Of course.
What's your favorite coffee, Megan?
Oh, yeah. I think for me, it's very mood driven. Right now, I'm very big on flat whites, but I say that as I'm drinking a black coffee. So I think I go back and forth.
Okay. Okay, let's jump into the topic. Uh, I mean, you spoke at the HR Leader Summit, and I think your talk was called "Building Your Leadership Muscle," which I really love.
Mhm.
How you show up impact culture. Uh, what was the content of this presentation? What's behind the title, and what was your key message probably to the audience, and how was the reaction from the audience? I mean, it's already more than 1 month back because time is passing by so quickly, but we really enjoyed having you with us at the conference, and it was great
Yeah.
to have you there.
Amazing. Well, first of all, it was amazing to be there. And it's also such an amazing conference. I cannot believe how you put all of that together. So amazing work. Um, the talk was wonderful. I mean, basically behind the title is more around leadership is an ever learning and ever changing opportunity. And just be aware of that. Realize that you're not going to be great at it all the time, first time you do it, any time of day. And there are things to just constantly learn and develop on. And that comes down to, people, places, organizations, all of those things are constantly changing. So it's really, really fun to talk about, at least for me. And I thought it was really interesting at the conference as well, because I honestly, going into it, was a little bit um, questioning, how is this going to land? I think we're very much in the age of, what's the next newest AI technology? We want to know about that. So to really dive into, leadership development, I was very much going, is this really going to land? Are there going to be a lot of questions, comments, anything like that? And I felt like it really did. It was very, very interactive audience, lots of questions, um, really good context and kind of people agreeing, people learning everything. Uh, I think the biggest takeaway I had was actually just so much we still have to work on supporting leaders. I think we we do a lot of work around that and developing leaders, but I think there's still so much to do because a lot of the kind of questions, interactions, it's things that it so many opens up so many opportunities for us, and so much to really work on and really elevate team members.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How would you describe the most significant changes over the last couple of or 10 years probably? I mean, you have been in many international companies. You have built up teams. You have really seen scaling or fast scaling. You have seen multicultural environments. What has changed within the last 10 years if it comes to leadership? What has it the most significant changes from your point of view?
Yeah. For me, I think the biggest one is really moving from kind of how we title manager, of
Mhm.
you're directing, you're telling the team what to do, you're looking at a lot of data, summarizing it, to leader, where you're developing people, you're creating safety, you're building a culture, you're building a vision, you're supporting individuals. Um, and then I think now as well, even more recent years, we're moving into just so much ambiguity. So it's a lot of leadership in how do you lead through so much change and so much uncertainty, and stay resilient in that. Um, and then there's also kind of this overarching theme that I feel like I see where, what was it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, even, we were very much scaling. It was everything was join the next rocket ship. We're scaling, we're massively growing, we're hundreds of people behind in hiring and in team building and product releases. And I'm not I'm not saying we're not scaling still, but I think that super fast growth is backing off and we're focusing quite a lot more on strategy and people development. And that also plays its part into, what that means for leaders and onboarding tooling and AI and everything in technology as they go.
What do you think will be kind of adjectives that will stay? So some kind of skills and basic skills that will remain, even if AI comes, even if we are probably changing our leadership styles, and what is the new kind of skill set that needs to be developed at leaders?
Yeah. Oh, it's a good one. I think the short answer is, yeah, I don't really know. Because there's so much change happening all the time. It's hard to really say, but I think some key areas are going to be really leaning into building safety and trust and support in a team. Really leaning into communication. So that core, how are you communicating? Are you communicating the same thing differently in different spaces, places? Can you do that? Um, and also business acumen, which is probably the one that's going to be, pushed further and further as we look at implementing AI, especially in people leadership, is setting strategy and vision and understanding how everything connects to your business and to your product and how you can use AI to support that and then lead through that as well. So then I think you're going to get a lot more leaning into uh, actually more of like the EQ pieces and um, resilience and driving through change and being less in the weeds, but more strategic and vision oriented, even more so than what we've seen in past years and past teams, I suppose, and organizations.
Do you think that here in Europe, I mean, for me, developing the future always means being curious, being interested in change, being open for change. Do you think that we have reached that level in Europe already, that the level that we need to develop the future, stay ahead? Because honestly, what I miss sometimes, I mean, if I talk to people, there's always fear first. So we are afraid of AI, that it's taking away our jobs. We're not seeing we always see the threats and the risks first, and then we probably have a closer look to the opportunities. Is leadership a kind of part of the organization, or leadership teams are part of the organization that should also focus on that change and motivating the people, inspiring the people, and regenerating or reopen the curiosity? Because I sometimes really miss the curiosity of people.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think for me it's a few things. I think I wouldn't even single out Europe. I think just kind of globally, we're all very afraid. So even the people, the teams, everything that are pushing things forward and driving change, I think they're still very, very afraid and doing it. They're just kind of working through that. So there's hesitations in certain areas. I think we could probably work on doing that more, of working through fear, naming it. And I think that's a big piece for leaders as well, is really naming that, this is scary and it's moving very fast and it's a lot of things we don't know and there's a lot of unknown answers. That could be kind of a key piece. But I think you're right, is I also often miss the kind of curiosity. And that I think comes with developing that culture as a culture of learning, a culture of curiosity, which I think we more and more as leaders need to do, because things are just going to keep changing. I think one of the first things I was told in my career was the only thing that's constant is change. And so it's just it's something to kind of live by and really lean a bit more into, especially as we go through all these stages of, sure, we don't exactly know how we're going to use AI in every aspect, or where it's reasonable or where it's not. I think a lot of teams are actually quite behind in using it in places that they can, and then vice versa. I think there are even probably other teams and organizations that are implementing so fast. It's also brings its own challenges. So it's probably going to come down for me to the culture and really driving that forward and kind of bringing us back to change is a constant, and let's stay curious, and how do we keep building that? So the short answer is, yeah, I think that's very much in kind of leadership. Um, and really everyone at the same time is, keep open and curious and ask a lot of questions and have that always learning mindset, because that's ultimately what growth is.
Wouldn't that mean that we also have to open up a little bit for getting more open and more positive towards failures? Because I mean, experimenting, trying things, honestly, it doesn't work out without doing kind of errors and mistakes and failures as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're never going to try something and get it right the first time. There's always going to be a failure. And so the more you can lean into that, the more you can build a culture around that, help individuals navigate that, create support as well, because, there will be failures, but you don't necessarily want some big atrocious fail. You don't want to set someone up where they're not going to be able to succeed at all, or a team up where they're not going to be able to succeed at all. But at the same time, without failure, you don't learn, you don't grow. And I think all of us are probably failing all the time in some way, shape, or form with our transition to AI, because it's also uncertain. So there's no kind of North Star or benchmark to say, oh, great, we got this totally right. So it could also be another way to look at it, as far as building a, fail friendly culture and making that okay as teams are growing and navigating and figuring things out.
Have you met in your previous career, I mean, you have been working for a lot of startups and companies that really had fast grow, and they're really big names on the market now. Have you some good examples for the audience how to treat that kind of failure culture, how to motivate people to be more open for that? Some kind of some tiny bits and pieces that were used to openly talk about failures, probably, or an award ceremony where the biggest mistake got a prize or something like this. Have you met?
Yeah, actually, in a few of the companies I've been at, I've done or at least been a part of regular, you know, how would we put them, like coffee chats or um, presentations at the end of each month, quarter maybe, where the whole focus is here's what we tried to do and here's how we failed. And it involved kind of every organization as well. So it wasn't necessarily, just the people team or the people leaders saying, hey, here's what we tried to do. It was also engineering, sales, we tried this, it didn't go well. Here's what we learned. And presenting that to the rest of the organization or even the site, for example, so that there's more talk about this is how we navigate failure. And the key thing is here's what we learned. Um, I think that's a big one of just kind of a simple thing to implement in a team and an org. And then the rest, kind of little tidbits, for me, they often actually come from the leaders, the individual leaders of the teams and of the orgs, just having those conversations and sharing, this is how I failed, this is how I figured something out. We're not always going to get it right the first time, so let's give it a go. Let's try for this date to launch something. If we don't, then this is what we're going to do, so that you're just having that ongoing conversation about failure can happen, and that's okay.
I mean, if we're now stepping into a new era of AI, and I mean, we definitely can't avoid, and we probably shouldn't avoid this, I think, because it's part of our lives and it will become an even bigger part of our life. How should leaders address it? I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of fear in organizations. How should leaders tackle that topic towards their teams?
Yeah. So I think, as you say, there's a lot of fear towards it. So I think starting with even just addressing that, addressing that, hey, this is new for us and it can be scary, but we're going to figure out together how it works or what we do or what's going to be supportive. And then once you've had those conversations, then looking at trying it out and looking at what tools are going to support your team and are going to be helpful. Because that's also what helps navigate and move through the fear is here's what we're going to use, and let's all think together what's going to work as well. What are you missing? What do you need? And then from there, it's a whole lot of different things around, are you using the best tools? Are you using too many? Are you behind? Are you ahead? Asking those questions.
Do you see that a big challenge to keep this kind of balance as a leader between, I think that the most common topic that I hear with at the moment, or I hear the last couple of years, if I went to conferences, if I was listening to talks, everything was under the umbrella data-driven. So I think we are really running into this tech-savvy world. So it's really tech, tech, tech. And on the other hand, at the end of the day, my personal experience is every product you develop, if it doesn't make sense for humans, you can leave it. Yeah. So you need not to develop something which doesn't bring any value to humans. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how difficult do you see this kind of balance between this tech savvy approach, which is probably totally signed up from all the managers and top management and shareholders, because that's really then the proof for shareholder value as well. And on the other hand, you have this kind of big angle of staying human, staying human focused and being human centric. How difficult is it to find the right balance there?
I think it's incredibly difficult. And I think even naming that is also good. Is we're talking about it is hard, and I think the hardest part about it is this question mark of what is the right balance. For me, then it brings in a lot of a lot of ideas and focus around hitting the little things, because a lot of us say, hey, we're data driven, but are we really, are there tools that can support data for us? And then what does that then mean for our skill sets as people and individuals for, the phrase of keeping the human in the loop is like, what skills then do we need to develop so that we can use these tools and use a few of them, but maybe not overwhelm us with 25 of them, but just make sure we're using a few tools that are helping and supporting us, removing mundane things so that we can work more on how we do something as well as what we do, and how we drive something forward as well as what we're driving forward. And then balancing that. But that also, I think the challenge is that looks different in every team and I think every organization as well. It probably comes down to what your overall business and structure and vision is and what you're trying to accomplish, and then backing that up to what does that mean for individual teams and how do you balance that as leaders?
Mm. And if AI is taking over, I mean, we're now, I mean, I think we are already the next, coming closer to the next stage where probably agentic AI is taking over some of the decisions that are really done by AI itself. What does that mean from the leadership perspective if it comes to probably moral and ethical guardrails that we have to put in all the decision passes? What does it mean if it comes to courage? Because I think you probably have to stand up as a leader then and say, okay, now this was probably half a step too much, and this needs probably boldness and more braveness as well. So it's not somebody's taking the responsibility, probably the next level in the organization is taking the responsibility for that, and so you can probably hide behind that. But if it's done by AI, if it's done by some agents that we have developed with whom together, what do you see there?
Yeah.
Challenges?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be actually probably the next truly big challenge is figuring out what's right and how we use it. It's tough to even kind of imagine because so much of it is also unknown. We don't know what um, even like regulations and laws and things that are coming about it, and we're kind of as humans we're quite used to that of okay, well this is just a regulation that we need to follow, and this is what the legal team and the organization is telling us, and this is compliance, and there's just a lot of question marks around that. So I think it's going to come a bit down to even really leaning into the EQ of leaders and individuals as well on kind of gut feeling of, okay, have we taken this too far? Um, do we need to be, eliminating this entire team or organization for this tool? Or actually, do we need to look at strategy and vision and communication to work with that and support that tool? It's hard to say though exactly what that's gonna mean, for individuals, but I think it's for sure going to up level, the EQ and the decision making of what do we need and why do we need it and what are we ultimately trying to accomplish? And will this help us get there? And then also having from there the kind of guidance, skill set, or even just courage to speak up. So a lot more managing up because I think, as you said, I'm going to guess a lot of these decisions are going to come a lot more top down of, hey, we've got this tool or this thing that we need to use, and this is how we're going to use it. And there's going to be this need for a lot more managing up of, hey, actually, this is the consequence, or this is what happens when we do that, and this is why. Um, but in a still a gray area. So a lot more skill sets to develop on that, I think.
I mean, a total different aspect, but I was touched by it during our conference because some of the visitors and some of the speakers opened up the discussion, and I really found it extremely interesting. There's this kind of triangle. We have on one hand in an organization, you always have the kind of a shareholders with the shareholders value. Then we have kind of people developing the future. So it's as we are coming from we're developers, we are mainly talking about software developers and in this ecosystem there. But it's not only meant for developers, because at the end of the day, in a couple of years, my personal take is that every one of us will be a kind of a software developer as well, because I mean, when I was told 25 years ago that we will do our bank business on our mobile phones, I wouldn't have believed it. So I mean, at the end of the day, that we are all I think we are bank consultants at the moment ourselves in some cases. And so from that point of view, nobody would have believed that. And then we have this kind of, if you have kind of a shareholder value thingy, which needs to work, of course, otherwise it doesn't make sense. You have a kind of people developing the future for you so that the shareholder value can increase. And on the other hand, we have HR, or let's call it people and culture, or however we like. Probably HR is the wrong term, but this triangle definitely needs to be very stabilized. So I think the role of HR, or the role of people and culture, will massively change over the next upcoming years, because we need to keep the whole thing in balance. And we know from all our studies that in 2019, for software developers, I think the brand and money was the most important two things to change the jobs, or think about changing the jobs. In the meantime, it's things like mental health, it's inclusion, it's kind of purpose, it's personal development. So there's a lot of individual things coming up, and this needs to be balanced, because if this triangle doesn't stay in balance, it definitely won't work. So how do you see the change of HR's role in the near and upcoming future with this kind of setup?
I think at least what I'm even already seeing is the push for HR to, well, HR, people, culture, how we want to classify it, to be to develop a bit more on the business acumen side, so that the kind of seat at the table that we've always been talking about is there to support the people and the well-being and people development, but also really connect the triangle together with understanding the business and tying that to the business and why this is so important for the business and for your next product launch, or for your shareholders to understand how we're going to be equitable and profitable going forward, so that there is really a link and kind of almost even perhaps like a translator of, this is how people really falls into that, and really step out of, the place that I think people in HR was in years and years ago of, hey, we're just here for you to come to when you need help with this one little situation, but really be the partner and the guidance for, this is how we bring everything together, and this is how we drive the business forward, and people are behind that. So here's what you need to know about the people.
I'm right now preparing a kind of a new keynote talk for myself, which I really find extremely interesting, because I see a new alliance coming up, and it's the alliance between CHROs and CIOs. Because if you want to stabilize this triangle, I think these two groups of people need really closely work together, and they need to really build an alliance. How do you see that?
Yeah, I agree. I think they need to work very closely together, but I would say also with the CEO, so that CIO, CEO, CHRO, they're very, very close, very much peers. I think, what I'm still also seeing even in startup growth is often the CHRO is actually reporting into the CIO or the CFO, say, instead of the CEO. And so they need to stay very tight, but also be very evenly placed peers, so that they're all three kind of seat at the table leading forward. And that's also what I think will, as you say, stabilize and build the triangle.
Very cool. Meghan, I think we could talk for another 2 hours probably, or 3 hours. we
To
are
passionate
coming.
topics.
Yeah, we are coming to the end of this episode, but I want to raise some more tiny questions to you. One of them would be if you would mentoring the next generation of leaders. So if somebody would ask you, there's some kind of newbies coming from school, coming from universities, what 3 capabilities would you like to tell them they need to master? What do you think is the 3 most important things from your point of view for future?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think I've kind of dabbled through it already, actually, but I would say global communication and stakeholder management so that you're really leaning into how you communicate something, what you communicate, can you communicate it in many different ways. Also, resilience, I think, is a big one so that you can lead through change and lead others through change, because I think that will continue to only exponentially become a common thing. And then also business acumen of really understanding the business, because I think as we continue to lead through things, roles are going to overlap, kind of as we were talking about the triangle and different peers and partners. You're all kind of going to overlap, and the more you develop that business acumen and understanding of your overall business and what you're driving forward, I think the stronger leader and communicator you will be behind that.
And if AI comes into the place, which definitely is true,
Mhm.
is there probably one topic or one leading or leaders one leader's issue, probably, let's call it issue, one leader's issue that we can say, okay, we hand that over to AI because AI is doing it better than we do as humans, and another one which we probably then need? Do you have two in mind?
Yeah, I think what we should be handing over to AI, and honestly, I kind of feel like we probably should be doing this already, or many have already, is the administration, the administrative tasks, the scheduling, the structural data, tallying, things that are really draining us that, take time that we need, but that, free us up to do other um, growth opportunities, which then I think leads me to the one thing it will drive a lot more need for is EQ, really being human, really understanding, listening, creating safety, developing people. Even if you aren't a leader, even if you're an individual contributor and you're leaning into those leadership skills, that's going to be behind
Mhm.
everything we've talked about around the business acumen, the safety, the support, all of that.
Uh, And finally, I wanted to ask you if you could give one single piece of advice to. I mean, sometimes me as a leader, I'm totally overwhelmed as well by what's going on, and I mean, sometimes it frustrates me as well, and it confuses me, and it makes me really kind of feeling insecure. Do you have one piece of advice that you can give the leaders out there, if this feeling comes up in their minds and heads and stomachs and hearts?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. I think what I would start with actually is kind of as you said, is I think it's overwhelming for everyone. So even just
Yeah.
recognize that what we're going through right now is overwhelming, period.
Mm.
So you're not alone.
Yeah.
And then with that, lean on other people. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Lean on others. See what other people are experiencing and what they're going through. Because that's for me how we get through overwhelm, is leaning on each other and asking for help. And it's something that we veer away from often, I think.
Okay. Megan, thank you very much. It was a great time talking to you, and I really enjoyed the discussion. And for the audience, please stay tuned for the upcoming episodes, and hope to see you all soon again. So thank you very much. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching Cappuccino with HR. If you enjoy this kind of conversations, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Then you get all this kind of upfront information, your upcoming episodes, and all my nice guests. Cappuccino with HR is brought to you by We Are Developers, Europe's #1 developer community and a leading platform for connecting HR and companies together with developers. If you want to learn more, visit us on wearedevelopers.com. Thank you again for watching and see you next time on Cappuccino with HR.